Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Going live today with Sally, who is the founder of Sensitive Matters, which are incredible storybooks that you can personalise, make them custom to you, to tell your child's unique journey about being donor conceived, or born via surrogate, or adopted, or fostered. They're here now, so I'm going to invite Sally in. For Pride Month, we're talking about the 5 ways to empower donor conceived children today and how to help them take pride. So let's welcome Sally, and if you have any questions as we chat, please do ask. I just saw her come in. Hello, hi to those who are joining. Nice to see you today. Hi, Sally. How are you?
Hi, Eloise. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. I've just introduced our topic today, which for Pride Month, we're talking about 5 ways to empower donor conceived children, which I absolutely love. And Sensitive Matters have written a fantastic article with us about this theme, and we've also got quotes from the LGBTQ plus community about ways they're talking to their children and how they're empowering their children through storytelling, through the personalized books that you guys offer, which are incredible. And so we're going to talk a bit more about that today. And if anyone wants to read more about what we're talking about today, please head to our link in bio, where you can read more and also benefit from a 15% discount on the incredible Sensitive Matters books up until the end of September with code FHH15. So we talk a bit about the benefits of reading time in this new article, don't we? In your opinion, what are the benefits of sitting down and reading with your child?
Well, we've always advocated you need to start really young. And the benefits of reading and using a book is that it just gives you a tool to start talking about the story without having to think about it, without having to feel awkward. You've got a book in front of you. You start when they're very young, and it just makes the whole journey a lot easier. Mm-hmm. But you know, talking about the article that we've written, there's a number of things in that I think are really interesting about empowering your child. So, you know, can we talk about those? Some of the points.
Definitely. So we've picked out 5 key things. The first is building a strong support network. So what are your thoughts on that?
So, you know, we've always said, find your tribe. And I think that is a really key thing. And one of the things that's really important is tell your story and be honest. You'll find that, and you know this, Eloise, and I know this, the moment you open up and you tell your story honestly, you'll find other people will be open and share their story, and that way you suddenly develop a shared bond a bond through shared experience. So you might well find that your family and your friends are very supportive, and that's great, but actually you're going to have a unique experience, and it's really good to go and seek out those people and just be honest. You'd be amazed at, you know, I've not actually been a person in my life who really wants to share things, and I've been amazed at how opening up and sharing things has allowed me to make close bonds with people, because suddenly they go, oh, that happened to me too, or I have a very close friend that happened to. So that's a key thing. And I would say, you know, as gay parents, potentially one thing to share with your child is they've obviously got a fantastic tribe, but one thing to share is the joyousness of how technology and the laws and things have changed to enable gay parents to be parents. You know, and they come at it from a very different point of view than potentially hetero parents who perhaps enter the world of donor conception as a last resort, whereas actually for gay parents, this is fantastic. We can actually have children. We can be parents. So, and that's a very happy start.
I think also what I've seen in the LGBTQ plus community, especially during Pride, is parents taking their children who are donor conceived, or however they've had children, to Pride with them to celebrate how, you know, how things have moved forward.
Fantastic.
And to recognise the way that their family's built and who they love.
Yes, and I think that that's wonderful, and I think that that's a well worth, that's well worth doing, and those children have started with already a very open and loving and a strong start. There's no shame in that. So
Exactly, and I
that
think that's the one of the things we hear, isn't it, from experts in the field and psychologists. When you're talking to donor conceived children, no matter what your family setup is, if you're talking to them from a young age, it's about having it as an open conversation, so that they know from the beginning that it's nothing to feel, that there's no shame,
there's no
and
shame in it. It's not a secret, and it's not,
exactly.
yes, and it's not, and part of the issue, I suppose, hetero parents feel is like, because it's maybe it's the end of a fertility journey for hetero parents sometimes. It feels like maybe it's not something, it's hard maybe to convey that actually we're so fantastically joyed that we created you in this way, whereas actually for gay parents it's a different thing. So I think that that's a wonderful place to start.
Although I know, having spoken to lots of people in the community who are in same-sex relationships, that with heterosexual couples using donor conception, yes, there is that sense of loss and grieving genetics, but many people who are in same-sex relationships also feel that because they're not able to genetically have a child with the person they love. So even though then there isn't necessarily a sort of
Even then,
shock factor in terms of having an infertility diagnosis, it can sometimes be, from friends I've made in the community who've mentioned it, it can be something that they need to get their head around when building their family. Of course, things change when the child arrives, and those apprehensions will disappear. But that's why having resources like Sensitive Matters, like your books, helps explain that narrative about the journey that the parents went on, or the parent went on, to create their family, how it was unique, how it was so considered, the length that they went to, and the different things that happened during the journey, including photos and visuals or the avatars, to bring that to life so that the child can understand that this is a celebration and this is all about their life and their life story.
yeah, exactly, and that's the key thing, is in our books it is very much about their own unique story, because the books are so customizable. So
and for
yes.
anyone who's joining now, well, just to recap, we're talking about 5 ways to empower donor conceived children. We're talking about it during Pride, and we've written with Sensitive Matters an article all around this about helping donor conceived children take pride, and the link is in our bio, so please read more. Sally and the team at Sensitive Matters have the most incredible online books that you can personalize with your unique story. We have them, my husband and I, for our donor conceived children, and we read them with the children so often. They are our favorites, and we genuinely love them. They always request them. So if you want to have a little bit more of a look about how you can make them and what it entails, go to our link in bio, and also until September you can get 15% off with the code FHH15. So the second point we have in our 5-point sort of roundup of things to consider during to empower donor conceived children is make room for questions. And what are your thoughts here?
So this is quite a big one, because actually my advice would be, you need to sit down and think about every awkward and awful question that your child could ever possibly ask you, or anything that they may say to you at any point in their lives, and think about the answer. And you have an opportunity by doing that to, those instances where somebody says something to you and you're so shocked that you can't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then
and
an
you
hour
reflect
later,
afterwards.
think of a really good response, a really good, witty, calm response that would have, smashed it. And actually, this is the moment where you can actually engage that hindsight, and pre-engage that hindsight. If you've thought about any possible questions and you've thought about how you might answer them, that means that when that question comes up, it doesn't shock you, because you've already thought about it and you've got a measured, calm response. Because what we really don't want with donor conceived children is that they ask a question that makes us feel awkward, because we don't want them to feel guilty that they've made us feel awkward. And we don't want them to stop asking questions. That's the key thing. We don't want to lose that openness. So that's my advice. That's my thoughts on that, is actually sit down and think about all the worst possible things. And in my case, for example, I've even thought about, what are you going to say when someday your son gets really angry with you and goes, well, you're not my mother, my real mother anyway. How am I going to respond to that? And I think about the response, think about it. What is my measured response going to be, and how am I going to respond to that? And my first thing would be, whatever you say to me, I'm never going to stop loving you. So
I love that response.
So I think that's a really key thing, is make room for questions. But making room for questions is not just meaning allow your child, and encourage them to ask questions, but think about the things that they might ask you, because sometimes there might be things out of the blue. They might, think, what might your child ask you about the sperm donor? What might they ask you about an egg donor? How are you going to answer those questions? Mm-hmm. What are you going to say if they say, can I ever meet that person? How are you going to answer that? So I think that it's, forewarned is forearmed. And if when you've gone through that process and you've already faced all these demons in your head, it isn't awkward if the question does come up, because you've already gone through this, the shocking,
exactly.
So it's
exactly,
it's not a difficult thing to deal with.
And we've also talked about this, haven't we, with the help of your books and confidence, talking to your children or child from a younger age is of course about empowering them and for them to learn where they've come from and the journey that's happened, but also helps the parent or parents get comfortable with talking about how the process has been and what they did. So it's almost a good way to practice what you're wanting to get across, isn't it?
It's a great way to practice, because actually when they're really small, you can start to add extra explanations, and that'll just kind of wash over them. So it's a really good way to practice and get comfortable with the story. The younger you start, the better. Truly, yeah. There's nothing to replace that. Definitely.
And then the third thing to empower donor conceived children that we've discussed in this article, the links in the bio, is get out their way. Now, how would you summarize that one?
I guess, we it's easy to want to protect these children, and we don't want them to be hurt, but no one learns from other people's mistakes. We all need to make our own mistakes and learn that way. So I think, let them, you've almost got to maybe engineer them to make small failures, so that you can then talk about it and say, well, how did that make you feel? But you've really just got to let them fail. That's just a parenting thing, I think, maybe. It's just.
But at the same time, you want to be a safety net, don't you? So that you're there for any bumps in the road or any questions, or
yes. So you always want to be open. Always want to be open to answer questions, and answer questions is going back to pre-think. Answer questions in a matter of fact, factual way. We've got to try to keep awkwardness out of the conversation with our donor conceived children, because we know from our donor conceived adult friends that actually, if they sense that anything that they ask or questions to their parents makes their parents feel awkward, they kind of feel bad about that, and they'll stop asking, and they'll just keep things to themselves, and they'll keep things bottled inside, and we don't want that. So
completely agree. And then we also have Model Your Pride. And in this article, again, head to our link in bio because it's such a great read. We've got some lovely quotes from some of the LGBTQ plus community who we both know well, and who also equally like me, like you, have donor conceived children, and also rate your books and use them a lot with their own children. So tell us a little bit about their thoughts on how they're talking to their children and the kind of quotes that they've given us around their storytelling using the Sensitive Matters books, The Magic of, and then The Name of the Child.
So I think they really found it a great help to talk about the child's unique story, and it's a way to maybe introduce the, you know, if you've got a known donor, it's a way to introduce the donor to the child, and say, you know, this person, this is how they helped, this is their name, and there can be a photo of them. So again, you know, the books are a tool for you to start a conversation. And this is the key thing, and we've talked about this before, Eloise. We know it's not a one and done. It's not that you read a book and then that's it. We don't need to talk about this anymore. But it is a way
and
to start.
Surprisingly, I've been doing this for, been reading to my daughter, especially with the help of your book, for at least a couple of years, and with your book for at least 6 to 12 months. And it's amazing how I'll just ask some questions and it feels like we're back to square one again. But I know that the excitement about reading about it never goes. I don't know how you feel about your son and his, how he responds to your book. But it's always on the front of my children's bookshelves, and they don't always pick it, but they often pick it because I think they just love hearing about themselves. And
they do, they love it. Well, they love hearing about this. It's their story. So and I mean, and that is the key thing about the books, is that it is their story. It's not a story or someone else's story, a similar story. It's their story. So yes, they love it because it's their story. And don't kids love to look at photographs of themselves anyway, and photographs of themselves when they were born and what they looked like as a baby in the hospital,
and so, family members as well.
Yeah, and they love to see, you know, oh, there I was with granddad, or there I was with auntie, whatever. Yeah.
And with your books, and for anyone who's interested in checking it out, please head to our link in bio now to read more. This fantastic empowerment article for Pride, giving tips on talking to your donor conceived children, whether it's now and you have donor conceived children, whether you're, you know, on your fertility journey and you're looking to have donor conceived children. It's worth reading these now just to familiarize yourselves with them and know what options and resources are out there, and to hear other people's views about what they found helpful, like from Pride Angels. Erica mentions her experience in this article, which is in our bio, and also LGBT mummies, and also two dads, and they share their views and how they've been raising their children with Pride central to that. Is there anything else? Oh, I was also going to mention that when you're creating your books, because I know firsthand because I've done it, my husband and I picked the heterosexual route for a couple in terms of the layout of the books. But what's easy about your books is that you have lots of sort of templates set up, don't you, for different family building paths. So no one should be
so although
concerned.
they're completely customizable. There are, exactly. I think in the photo version of the book, there are 36 story versions. So there, you know, there's all the possible scenarios we could think of for mums and dads, and then all the possible scenarios we could think of for mums. So you would be presented with a default story, and then you would just modify that story to suit your own particular circumstances. I mean, you could completely rewrite it, but if you wanted to, but there is a base story there to give you a head start. So it's, yes, we've tried to make it as easy as possible. So you could theoretically make a book in about 10 minutes if you just went with the default story that was close to yours, added in your own names and drag and dropped in a few photos. You could be 15 minutes and done. A lot of our customers, as you did, you know, you really make it your own. You change the photos, you add in more photos, you switch up that, you add photo frames, or as Victoria Nino did, she went to a great deal of trouble and had sort of her own photographs made so that the book is really beautiful and is really her and her husband feeling sad, looking happy. So it just depends on you. It depends on you. You can do a little bit and it's very quick to do, or you could do a lot. and make something that's really special, that's really your own work of art.
Fantastic. If anyone has any questions for Sally or the Sensitive Matters team or myself, please do DM, and we're happy to help. And also head to our link in bio and use code FHH15 for a lovely 15% off all of your books until September. So do check it out.
Until the end of
It's one
September.
of my, Until the end of September, yeah. It's
So
one of my favourite. The end of September. It's one of our favourite resources to help speak to our children about being donor conceived. And even if you're not there yet, it's worth just knowing what's out there and taking these tools and tips for when you are at that stage. So do go and read this article when you're able. So yeah, Sally, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything else you think people should think about or consider?
The only thing I would say is part of being a safety net for your child is it's useful to give people a heads up about a donor conceived child, just because we were talking about awkwardness. If other people know and are aware, then it helps them prevent saying something that would make the child feel awkward or insecure. So it's a good idea to let people know. People like teachers or nursery teachers or school teachers just have to say, be aware this child was conceived in this way. They actually find it, they're quite grateful usually if you do that.
And not only are they grateful, when we told our daughter's school, they weren't surprised at all. They are used to parents telling them about different family building setups. So that's a good thing that,
Yes, I wouldn't be nervous about it at all, because they are, they're used to it, and they're grateful for the knowledge.
Yeah. So yeah. Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sally. Thank you to those who have joined, and do head to our link in bio and check it out now.
We look forward to having lots of people signing up.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sally. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eloise. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.